This is the third video in a series of how to create a forms library. So video 1 showed you how to set up your custom entity for a form request, how to edit and modify the portal so that you could then display the form requests in a table with hyperlinks that would then take you to a specific survey using Forms Pro. So the second video showed you how to create a Microsoft flow that would actually then generate these for you when you click on a field or you set a trigger on an account record to say, right, let's go ahead and generate these forms. So this last video is going to show you the flow that you can then have run when someone actually completes a survey, so that within the portal it updates that link and says, hey, you've already completed this, and actually removes the hyperlink so that they can't go ahead and complete the form again. All right, so here we have our forms library. They haven't completed any of the forms yet, so we only see this list of the ones to complete. So let's go ahead and we'll just click on one of them. It'll open up and we'll go ahead and just fill this out and put in our values and go ahead and submit it. All right, so that's fine. We've had that submission go through. So in a moment, what's happening is we've got the flow that's running in the background, and it will go ahead and it will receive the response into CDS. And when that response is received, it will then go ahead and grab and find out what form request that survey was linked to, and it will then update the form request, which is essentially what we're displaying here, and then we'll know that that form was completed. So hopefully that's run and we can refresh. There we go, perfect. So now we can see there's the form that was completed, and that is based on the flow running in the background. All right, so let's go ahead and have a look at the flow and see how that's working. So the first thing is the record is created, and that record is the Forms Pro survey response. So that's the very first thing. So remember, we just completed that survey. That was our trigger. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to get the survey that was linked to. So we want to find out, okay, well, yes, we've got the response, but what survey was it linked to? Then we're going to check and see if the form name was any of the ones that that were listed. So I should also have Form D on there, but I've got Form A, Form B, Form D. So however many forms you've got, you want to be putting in the name of that Forms Pro survey. You can also use the ID. However, with the ID, it's if you're moving from environment to environment, it's maybe a little bit harder because that could change. If you're using the name, you just want to make sure that nobody else could go in and change the name. So that's the two options that you've got. If it's any of those forms, then we're going to go through our next steps. If it's none of those, we're not going to do anything because it's not one of our forms library forms that we've sent out. So the first step is going to be a parse JSON step. Now, there's a field that comes back through on the survey response entity that is called context data. Now, in order to get the information that you need for this step, you are going to have to do a test first of all. So in other words, fill out the form yourself. Then what happens is if we've got a Forms Pro survey response here, and I'm looking at the ones for a specific form, so Form A, and then that we've got the identifier, the form reference number. You'll see here we've got this context data. So if I hover my mouse, I can see it. Now if I just double click, that will select everything in there, and then you could open up Notepad and paste it in. So we can see that these parameters is the piped data of, if you remember when we created our survey originally and we set up the account and we set up the form ID, we can see there's the form ID that was passed when we generated our survey invitation. And what happens is when the survey is completed, that information comes back from the survey response back in to CDS so that we can actually then grab it and do something with it. We've also got the account name, and we've got the first name, and we've got the last name. So all you need to do is basically select that information that you've got from the survey response, and on this step you simply paste it in here and it then populates this information here. Now, what that then means is we can then use the values that were passed through. So remember, we saw the form ID, we saw the account, first name and last name. So whatever we wanted to do, we can then pass through. We can see here in the parse JSON information that we've just grabbed from the previous step, but we can see those values: account, first name, form ID, and last name. So that's fantastic. So we can then say, let's list the form requests that exist within our environment, and our query is going to be whatever the field is that you've called it. Mine is MVW underscore name. That's what I'm using for the form ID. So I'm basically saying that equals whatever the form ID is from the response that we've just received. So that way, because it's a unique identifier, I'm only ever going to find one form request that's come back through. So then what happens is we do an update step. As soon as I put in the form request ID from the list step, it adds this applied to each. It puts that in there automatically for us. So I want to choose the update record step, and then when I pull that in, it will then go ahead and add this section at the top. So you're not looking for an apply to each option. That will just be added for you automatically. Then what I'm going to do is I want to update when the form was completed. So because I've just received it, I'm going to say, right, it was completed now. So I am using, if I go into an expression and I just type in UTC now, we can see there as an option. I select it and then click OK, and it'll put that in there for me. I'm then doing a couple of other things. I am updating the status reason to completed and the status value to inactive. Finally, so this is on my form request. So finally, what I'm doing is I am linking the survey response lookup field to that survey response from the trigger, and that is an activity ID. So if I just go ahead and search activity, it's from the very first step when the record is created. That is the ID that I'm using. Okay. Then finally, what I'm going to do is I am going to update the survey response. So the response that's come through, I want that to have the same form ID and see what form it is that I created and used on my form response. So I'll show you that in CDS in just a moment. But I'm updating that by linking from the activity ID, and I'm setting the subject as the name of the form hyphen and then the ID of the form as well. So that's everything that I'm doing in my flow. If I then go ahead and let's actually look for this from the DOE's Dynamics distributors. So if I go to that account, go into this. Now, because this is we've set a regarding field to the account, I'm then going to have my form requests for this account. So I could go into the form requests and I can see all of my ones that are completed. And there's the one that I filled out. So if I go into that, that is my form request record. So we can see there, we've got the form ID, the form name, the details, the link, we've got the regarding of that account, and then we've got the completed on date and time. And then there's our lookup field that we set for the survey response. If I then go into it, we can see there's my, that's the subject now of my survey response. And then I can see all of my information, what the values are. So we've kept it consistent, we've linked everything together. It's the survey response that I wanted to get the details back on. That is essentially the form I wanted them to fill out. But it's the form request that is what is being displayed here. Okay, so hopefully that gives you some ideas of how you could create this yourself. Remember, there are 2 other videos that are in this series that if you don't watch them all, you probably will be very lost. So make sure you go back and watch the other 2 and look in the description for notes and links. And hopefully this helps. Let me know what you think in the comments below.
Hi, I'm Megan Walker. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and that you learned something from it. If you don't want to miss out on any other content, you can go ahead and click on my face below to subscribe. And if you want to watch the next video, you can do that by clicking over here and go ahead and get started. Thanks again.